Welcome to today's session, the latest in our long line of Hoist dashboard trainings. We're going to change emphasis a little bit today, and we're going to focus more on revenue and performance analysis. Mastery of revenue and performance analysis is essential at all times in the business cycle, but particularly so right now with sudden closures and reopenings, shorter booking cycles, enhanced cancellation options, and so forth. And we believe at Hoist Dashboard, or at Hoist Group, that Hoist Dashboard can be a key cog in this process. And so the good news is you don't have to listen to me today. I'm Simon Ianson, by the way, Chief Strategy Officer at Hoist Group, but you do have to listen to Danny Rees. Now, Danny is a Customer Success Manager, and she's based out of our Kilkenny offices in Ireland. And like many Hoist people, or Hoisters as we call them, she literally grew up in hotels and therefore is uniquely equipped to present this session. The session will run for about 20 minutes or so now. We do have the opportunity for any questions, and I'm sure this subject matter should generate quite a few. So you'll see on your Zoom taskbar that there is a QA function. So just click on that, write in your question, and then at the end of Danny's presentation, we will run through all those questions and try and answer them all in turn. Secondarily, we are recording today's session too. So if you have to pop out to have a phone call or to receive a call, or indeed if you have colleagues who you think might be interested in the content we present in this session, then don't hesitate to let us know either through the QA function or drop us a note at marketing@hoistgroup.com, and we'll make sure that we forward you the link at the end of this week so that you can rewatch or share today and all the other sessions for that matter. So I think it's time now to get into the session itself. So if the technology gods are with us, Danny, over to you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Simon. So firstly, hi, everybody. So I'm just going to start by sharing my screen here. So just one moment. So Matt, if you don't mind, seem to be the honors. If you can let me know if you can share see my screen, okay?
Yes, we can see the dashboard, Danny. Go ahead.
Fantastic. So, hi everyone. In today's class, we are going to be focusing on evaluating your historical KPIs, or your key performance indicators. So these results are generally from your property management system to help understand how your hotel's performance can be improved. Firstly, we're going to cover where the data comes from and how to actually manage the widgets. This is key because if you don't know where your data comes from or how to view it or analyze it, you can't make improvements within your business. Then we're going to go over how to drill down into the data and export it into various formats. With this knowledge, you can do your own cross comparisons on staff costs, operating costs, and much more. So let's get started. So first things first, you're probably wondering where all this data comes from. Today, we're going to be reviewing the statistical data. What is statistical data, you might ask? Well, it's some of your KPIs from a property management system. So things like your average daily rate, your RevPAR, or your revenue per available room, and your occupancy, and much, much more. Every hotel reports for both a historical and a business on the books overview of the property. The data that we're reviewing today comes from Hotsoft 8 property management systems, but we are also working on integrations on other systems like Opera at the moment too. So the data is pushed up from the property management system via an interface, and it gets aggregated within our data lake. We then put this web app or this fancy skin on it, which is the dashboard. This allows you to interact with the data, and it's fed up from the property management system on a daily basis. It gives you a full historical view and a 365-day forecast view, or business on the books, of your data. So let's take a look at the business widgets. That's what we like to call these. On our business widgets, we have three key widgets. We have a performance widget, an occupancy widget, and a total revenue widget. These widgets can be broken down or viewed, in different views. So for example, this one here, my occupancy widget, it's in a simplified view at the moment. So what it's giving me is a total of my occupancy for yesterday's date. If I take a look here at my total revenue widget, this one is in what we call as the advanced view. So it's a little bit of extra data than my occupancy. So it's just giving me one total here. But I can see, for example, my categories of my total revenue. I can select date ranges on any of those. So I can quickly just look at yesterday's. So now what I'm seeing is that we had a total revenue yesterday, and I can see that it was predominantly for gift vouchers. We then have our enlarged view, which is lots and lots of data, where you can see, for example, all of these statistical data here. Now, to change the view on any of my widgets, so for example, here, my occupancy widget. As I said, I'm looking at this in a simplified view at the moment. If I click on the three dots of the widget here, I have an option to change the widget view. So from here, I can choose my simplified, which it already is, or I can change it to an enlarged view. So from my enlarged view now, I have a little bit more options. On the bottom left of all widgets, you can change your date range to, for example, to the last 7 days, last 14 days, or the last 28 days. I can even select a custom date range. So I'm going to go select here, for example, a time when I know I was busy, which is the month of July. So here now, I can see lots of data. If I find that a little bit hard to view, I can move my toolbar here, and now I can see a little bit more data on the screen, but I can actually see it a bit clearer. So if I hover over any date range, so for example here, I'm choosing the 19th of July 2020, and that's the data that I want to look at in particular. Now the 19th of July, it might be a Wednesday, it might be a Thursday, I'm not quite sure. But what the system's going to do for me is, it's going to give me, and if I hover over to here, little tooltip displays. It's going to summarize my date, telling me that it's the 19th of July. It's going to tell me what my occupancy percentage is for this year. So for example, I can see that I'm 33%. I can then see how many room nights, so how many physical bookings were staying that night, which is 15. I can see my last year's occupancy, which is 17%, or 8 room nights. And then I can see a year-over-year comparison differential. So I can see that I'm up 88% on last year. Now, what's key and what's special about the way that it's doing this is that it's doing it the way that us as hoteliers want to view the data. It's not looking at the 19th of July this year versus the 19th of July last year. It's looking at the day of the week and the week number. So it's looking at, for example, week 33 and day 4. So it's comparing a Thursday to a Thursday. We don't like to compare a Thursday to a Friday. So that's why it's doing that way. It's the right way it's doing it. So this is handy because of the fact that it saves me time. I can go in and straight away do a comparison to see how I was on a day versus last year. It's no more running pesky reports twice, trying to look at my calendar, figure out what day of the week it was, and do my own comparisons. It's doing it for me. So from here as well, we can drag out our tooltip and we can expand it once again. On the bottom half of our occupancy graph here, we can see our guest nights. What our guest nights is it's taking a look at my sleepers. So how many people were in-house on any of those nights? So I can use this as a comparison to see what my guest spend was. So for example, I could take a look at my total revenue and cross-compare it against my guest nights. If I hover over any of the dates once again, I will see the figure for this year, for last year, and my year-over-year comparison. Once again, it's doing it the right way. It's day versus day. If we take a look here at our performance widget has 4 different charts. It has our ADR, or our average daily rate. Similar to my occupancy, you can see this broken down on any of your date ranges. It has my RevPAR, or my revenue per available room. My revenue per available room is a key statistic. What it's taking a look at is your total capacity within the hotel, and it's taking a look at your total revenue. It's giving you an idea of what's happening within the property. We can also see our total revenue per every customer. So it's my guest spend. So it's taking a look at all your revenue within the property and dividing it by your total amount of guests in-house. And then it's taking a look at your total capacity. And then it's taking a look at your total revenue per available room as well. So it's similar to your RevPAR here, but it's taking a look at all revenue as opposed to just room revenue. Once again, on this widget, you can select your date range. So even if I want to, on this one, for example, I can select custom, and I can actually take a look at the future. I can see for December what is happening within my property. So I can see here, for example, towards the end of the year, which we would expect, my rate does start to drive up slightly. So Christmas Day here, I'm quite busy in my property, for example. If we scroll down slightly, we can then see our total revenue widget. If I change the view on this widget now to my enlarged view, and if I expand my dates for the last 28 days, what I can see on this widget is I can see in a revenue growth rate. So I can see an evolution of how my revenue has grown over the last 28 days. I can also see my total revenue that has sold within the property, and then I can see it broken down by categories. In my demo location, the data sometimes doesn't make 100% sense. So if I go back to a month where I was a little bit busier, what you can see here, for example, is you can see my total revenue, my total value for this year, my last year value, and again, my year-over-year comparison for the same month range. I can then see it broken down by what we call is our sales categories. So as I mentioned, this data is coming from Hotsoft, my property management system. So in Hotsoft, we can customize our data and how it appears. So we can break it down to show by my food, my beverage, my conference food and beverage, or various other categories as well. This is great indication for high-level comparisons for year on year. What I would use this for is taking a look at my staff costs, for example. So if I wanted to take a look and see, last week, my staff costs were X, my total revenue was Y, and I can see that broken down by my individual categories. This will allow me to actually do a departmental breakdown to see what my staff costs were by department. It can give me an idea of where I need to make my improvements. Key in these times. So as you can see, if I hover over any of the categories, it gives me each of my categories broken down with their year versus year values. Now, excuse me, on each of my widgets, I can pin them, I can move them around to make it a little bit easier for me to see. As well as that, the next time I log in, it will remember my date selection. On the bottom of each of the widgets, you can see here, for example, it's telling me that I'm looking at them with VAT inclusive at the moment. If I want to change that, on my profile, I can select view revenues without VAT, getting tongue-tied. So as a hotelier, generally, I would look at my figures excluding VAT. I know that money's technically not mine. So you can change your view and how you want to do it on a global level. On each of your widgets as well, you can click on the three dots here and you can view a widget help, just in case you want to see what the widget is telling you and what's going on. As well as that, you can also add alerts. So I can say, for example, if for my defined date range, my value is greater than X amount, it will give me an alert to say that I've achieved that or I'm below it. As well as that, what we can do as well as on our widgets is, as I said, we can also remove the widget from our screen, or we can drill down into the widget. I'll come back to drilling down to the widget in just a few moments. So how I would use some of these widgets and how I would use the data. As I said, one of the key ones that I would do is taking a look at my total revenue. Looking at my total revenue for the property for the last 7 days or for the coming 7 days. Taking a look especially as my roster for last week and my staff costs and what my roster might be for the next 7 days. That, in combination with my occupancy for the same view, will give me an idea of where I can make improvements. So we want to try and squeeze every little ounce out of the business, keeping an eye on obviously how the business runs as well. We don't want to go too tight, but we can make improvements on that. So that's our business widgets and how to control them. Now, as I mentioned, we're going to run through drilling down into the widgets as well and extracting that data from the software. So if we select the three dots here, we can select widget drill down. So from here, we get our performance and we get our data. So I can select a date range once again. So I'm going to select a period when I was busy. I'm going to select August. So if I take a look at August here, we can see there's lots and lots of things on screen. I can see firstly, a chart to show that my ADR and how it's evolved. So it's an evolution of my ADR. I can see once again, my figures are still VAT inclusive. If I hover over the bars here, it'll tell me that I'm looking at the bar for my current year's ADR versus my previous year's ADR, or average daily rate. I can move the tooltip here, the date range selector, sorry, and I can hover over any of the dates and I can see once again my year-over-year comparison. I can move my date range so I can see, for example, I can focus down to a specific date. So if I was doing an analysis for the first week of August, the second week of August, or versus last year as well, I can do my analysis from that. We can then see my TrevPAR, my RevPAR, and my TrevPEC as well. So all of the data that we're seeing on the initial widget, we can see them here as well. But what we're seeing this time is we're seeing the two graphs side by side. These bars here are giving me an overview of yesterday's data. So for example, I can see my average daily rate for yesterday. It's actually 0 because, for example, I have no statistical data for yesterday at the moment, okay? I can see that I'm down 100% on last year because I have no revenue this year. I can see that then for my RevPAR, my TrevPEC, and my TrevPAR also. If we scroll down here then, this is all about where we can really drill down into the data and extract it. We get a chart, so we get the numbers rather than the pretty graphs of everything that I'm seeing above here. So for example, I can see my dates. I can see my current year's average daily rate versus my previous year. The same for my RevPAR, my TrevPAR, and my TrevPEC. I can move the columns. So for example, here I can select the arrows. And now I've switched my previous year and my current year's ADR. I can remove a column by hitting the delete button, or I can change the sort order. So at the moment, I am going in descending order of dates. If I select here, I can now change that, and I will then go into ascending order. What we can do then is we can actually export this into a PDF, a PowerPoint, or an Excel. You never know. I could get a last minute call as a revenue manager within the property from the general manager or any of the higher powers that be that says, oh, Danny, we need to have a quick meeting. I need to see how I did last year versus this year, and I need to see it quickly, meetings in 10 minutes. We know how hotels are, they're fast paced, they need things now. So I could log into my dashboard straight away, extract the data, enter my date ranges, extract the data, and there it is for me. Now, the benefits of doing this is, as I mentioned, I'm taking a look here at the 31st of August this year. It's doing an instant comparison against the same day, same week last year for all of my statistical data. So I've straight away got a comparison. I don't need to run two different reports, cross-analyze, and try and figure out what my dates may be. To give you an idea of how the export looks in Excel, just bear with me now, I'm just going to change my share screen here. Is what I can see is, for example, here, I can see this is how it exports in Excel.
Sorry, Danny, we cannot see your reports. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, sorry, no, it was just taking a couple of seconds. Joys of the internet. So what we can see here is I can see the hotel, I can see the dates that I'm looking at, and I can see the date and time that the report was created. I can then see, for example, my dates, and I can see my occupancy figures versus this year versus last year. If I wanted to, I could take this report, possibly enter something like my staff costs, create my own chart in a separate Excel, if I'm an Excel wizard, and then I can do a quick comparison to see what my departmental costs were. So you can extract that data from every single one of the widgets. So it's quite easy to do. Now, as I mentioned, this is data heavy. This is, I want to do a comparison of my occupancy versus my average daily rate to give me an insight of what's happening in the business. This is all to help improve performance. So insights are key, especially at the moment where last year's budgets and last year's figures, they might not apply as much because, let's be honest, the slate has been wiped clean a little bit. I need to do a new analysis. I need to keep on top of things. I need to constantly take a look at, for example, the next 30, 60, 90 days to see what's happening within my property. The benefits of extracting this report is I could use it as almost a little bit of a pickup. I can run this extract. I can take a look at the next 30 days on the books, and I can see the date and time it's run. I can then run this report again for tomorrow, for example, for the same 30 days, and I can take a look and see what the movement has been. Have I lost bookings on a specific date, or have I increased bookings on a specific date? Giving me an idea of what is happening in the property and what I need to keep an eye on. So it's all key information in analyzing the performance of the business and what's happening. So that's all from my side of things at the moment. It's how you can extract all your data, for example, and as well as that is then also how you can manage your widgets within the dashboard as well.